Okay, so Payday 3's life has been riddled with "we're so back" and "it's so over" moments. But as we sit here at the end of March 2025, we are eagerly awaiting some news on one major decision that really could play a key role in whether Payday 3 sinks or swims. You might remember from around the time of launch that Starbreeze and Plaion have a co-publishing agreement for 18 months of post-launch support. There was a lot of conversation in the community about this maybe 6 or so months after the game was released, but then there was very little mention of it over the last year. I'm certainly not saying that people forgot about it, they definitely didn't, but it wasn't so topical. Though it couldn't be more topical than it is right now, as at the end of this month, which is only a couple of days away, we've reached the end of that 18-month window of post-launch support. That means that pretty much right now, the decision about that contract getting renewed or not is being made, and most likely has already been decided on. So what was this agreement? What did it do for Payday 3? And what happens if it doesn't get renewed? According to the official Plaion press release from 2021, Plaion provided Starbreeze with roughly 50 million euros for both the development and marketing of Payday 3. By development, it didn't just mean development before the game was released, as this also included 18 months of post-launch games as a service support that is specified as meaning continuous development and the release of new content, as well as marketing after release. So essentially, Plaion provided Starbreeze with a lot of the cash they needed to get Payday 3 out the door, as well as support it for the game's first year and a half. Of course, at the end of that 18-month window, the contract doesn't simply disappear. There's an opportunity for it to be renewed if Plaion believe that Payday 3 is a sensible game to invest in further. Obviously, we all know how the last few months have been for Payday 3. Contentless, virtually silent when it comes to any form of meaningful communication, and above all else, just a pretty damn depressing time to be a part of the Payday community. So from that perspective, looking back at recent times, you wouldn't be surprised if Plaion want nothing to do with Payday going forward. So it's as simple as that. They're going to back out, right? Well, not necessarily. But just before we jump into why Plaion might actually consider continuing to support Payday 3, if you're enjoying the video, all I ask is that you consider clicking that subscribe button. We've currently got the goal of reaching 5,000 subscribers before Payday 3's next heist releases. If we manage to reach that pretty crazy target, I'm going to be going back and playing all of the Payday 2 heists that released exclusively on PC, and therefore I, as a console Payday 2 player, never really had the opportunity to experience. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. Why would Plaion even begin to consider supporting Payday 3 after the last 18 months? Well, Plaion are presumably privy to some of Starbreeze's plans for the future, and if they see enough potential in the roadmap, or even just in Payday 3 overall, then they might turn around to Starbreeze and express that while the last 18 months quite clearly haven't gone to plan, it's very obvious what needs to happen next. Get Armor 2.0 out the door, finish off the skills overhaul and get that into the player's hands as well, perhaps address the progression system with something as simple as the ability to reset your level so that there's always something to be working towards, and then get 1 or 2 slightly less ambitious heists in scale, but more densely packed when it comes to content in the game. The kind of heist that isn't a huge undertaking to produce, but can showcase potential new gameplay features like the drills we saw in the early builds of the game that leaked around the middle of last year, or some new randomization elements. Because realistically, if those few things were to happen, the game wouldn't be instantly saved by any means, but we'd be in a significantly better position than we are right now. If Plaion sees things from the perspective I've just laid out, I wouldn't be terribly surprised if they approached the renewal of this co-publishing agreement by giving Starbreeze something like 6 months and the necessary funding and support to get those things into the game, and then decide to reevaluate everything a little later down the line. At the end of the day, the Payday franchise at a high point really has the potential to be a money printer, more so Payday 3 than Payday 2, as Payday 3 is available on consoles. So completely giving up on it doesn't seem like the easiest decision to make, especially after proving that players will return for interesting content updates, just like we saw with the release of the Jacket character pack and overskill system. Only time will tell whether or not this deal is renewed, or if Starbreeze and Plaion are going to go their separate ways once these 18 months have concluded. So let's think about what could happen if Plaion pulls out. If that were to happen, I wouldn't expect development and support support for Payday 3 to simply end. The team have been very vocal about their plans to continue supporting Payday 3 for as long as they can. This week, when asked about the topic of the 18 months of support, Almir mentioned that the update after the next one is already planned out, and that the team are committed to supporting Payday 3. So we already know that at the very least we're getting 2 more updates, and I'm almost certain that there will be more after that, but so far we've essentially had at least 2 confirmed to us from Almir's recent livestream. The next update, which as we understand it should bring Armor 2.0, and the one that follows it. I believe that once Starbreeze know where they stand in regard to the Plaion support, then they'll be able to form a significantly more concrete roadmap for the rest of Year 2, at least internally, and potentially even share some of the details with us shortly after. We know that we're going to be getting some more information about what's coming soon, because we are still yet to receive that full year plan that Mats Yule mentioned during the Q4 report. I honestly think the reason we've seen such a delay in communication about the rest of Year 2 is because of this impending partnership reevaluation. Until this deal with Plaion has been completely renegotiated, renewed, or terminated, Starbreeze can't really be sure what the budget for Payday 3 going forward will be. I'm hoping that Plaion see the potential for success that Payday 3 truly has, but if not, and they end up stepping away from the game, then the ball is entirely in Starbreeze's court, and we'll just have to wait and see how well they manage publishing the game on their own if that's what they decide to do. As we move towards the middle of 2025 and onwards, Payday 3's competition is going to get fierce. Crime boss Roque City, as I understand it, has a pretty solid roadmap for the rest of this year. Grand Theft Auto 6 is still scheduled for release at some point during 2025, and we're bound to start hearing more about Den of Wolves later this year as well. For one reason or another, these games in particular are major competitors for Payday 3. Grand Theft Auto 6, while less of a direct competitor, is certainly going to be sucking up some of that console audience and pulling them away from Payday 3. Bear in mind, console, as we understand it, is where Payday 3 currently has the most of its players. Then you've got crime boss Roque City and the upcoming Den of Wolves, which are direct competitors to Payday 3, both of which I am also going to be talking about in dedicated videos at some point down the line. If I were Starbreeze, I honestly don't know what I would do right now. Either with or without Plaion support, the way I see it, there are 2 ways Payday 3's future could play out. Once Starbreeze know where they stand, they can try to charge full force into the second half of 2025 and risk being completely overshadowed by competitors, or staging a decent comeback depending on how the content they release is received. Or, on the other hand, Starbreeze could announce that Payday 3's post-launch support is being put on a temporary hold. Then the team could go away and rework the systems that need complete overhauls, as well as establish a much more stable content plan that aligns with a more concrete identity for the game. After that, maybe in a year or so, they could attempt to pull off a soft relaunch of Payday 3, having taken the time they would have spent fighting for attention with other major competitors otherwise to instead work on perfecting the game. Out of those 2 options, I genuinely don't know which one I would rather. Both of these approaches have the ability to completely revive or destroy Payday 3. If you had to force me to choose one, honestly, I would rather Starbreeze go quiet and come back when Payday 3's biggest issues have been addressed. All in all, we know that the decision surrounding this co-publishing contract is being made sometime soon. We are at the end of those 18 months. I really hope that we aren't left in the dark about what decision is made for too long, but even if the community isn't told what outcome was reached, I'm sure we'll be able to tell for ourselves sooner rather than later. As we draw closer to the end of March, we're also saying goodbye to a significant portion of Starbreeze's French studio. If you want to learn more about the layoffs that were recently brought to light, you can click the video on screen now. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.